Yet another attempt taken on President Trump's life. Whether you agree or disagree with President Trump with respect to his policies, you cannot argue with one undeniable proposition. Yet another attempt taken on President Trump's life. This is Steve Gibson reporting, a recognition to Tiger Logic for their production value. Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow so that I can continue to provide these observations and this type of content on current news, philosophy, and politics. We learned yet again the kind of character that we have in the Trump administration. President Trump remained cool, calm, and collected while under fire. His first instinct was to protect his wife. His additional instinct was not to give in to any attack on our country by anybody. Like the assassination attempt at Butler, Pennsylvania, where President then candidate Trump got up and said, "Fight, fight, fight." It showed precisely the kind of character that President Trump has with respect to advancing the cause of our country. Whether you agree or disagree with President Trump with respect to his policies, you cannot argue with one undeniable proposition. The man deeply loves our country. Candidly, he deeply loves New York City as well, which is why transactionally he's willing to engage and deal with the socialist Mayor Mondani. These are indicative of a character and a mentality that wants to advance the United States of America. He is intensely loyal to the United States of America and is willing to advance to the best of his ability the interests of our country, the interests of one of his cities, New York City, the interests of Americans over those foreign interests that try to take advantage of us. We also saw last night the character of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. If you see the videos and the photographs of the reaction of Pete Hegseth, he was the warrior last night, looking to protect the room, looking to deal with any adverse consequence of an attack. That is an indication of control under fire. We can rest assured that when we are dealing with adversaries such as Iran, when bad stuff happens, the folks that are in the administration calling the shots, making decisions, are doing so in a cool, strategic, and calculated fashion. We always remember presidential debates, and questions are asked of candidates in presidential debates. What would you do at 2 a.m. in the morning when you get the phone call? And voters have to assess the answer by the candidates and evaluate what kind of character they would have under circumstances of rigor, under circumstances of the United States being attacked or in a conflict scenario. We can rest assured that the voters made the right decision, at least with respect to this aspect, at least with respect to the aspect of the character, of the mentality of being in battle, and how the administration reacts and deals with conflict and heated environments where they need to react and make a decision. Do they sit stunned? Do they react in a cool and methodical manner that deals with adverse consequences? That's what you're seeing out of the Trump administration right now. Now, was the security protocol at the venue for the correspondence dinner optimized? Probably not. But it's never been something where it's been the most controlled environment historically. Does this support President Trump's building out of the ballroom adjacent to the White House? Absolutely. It's candidly ridiculous that the United States government does not have a secure facility to have these kind of events securely performed and engaged in. This reinforces the absolute propriety of having that ballroom built out. It's a travesty that for as long as that we've had the White House and facilities where we've had state dinners and these types of events, that we haven't had the kind of facility integral to the government complex that would afford the proper security protocols to be conducted. Now, back to President Trump and his character and his administration of the evening and what happened afterwards. He wanted to stay. He wanted to basically send a message: no one is going to dictate to the United States how the United States is going to conduct its affairs. Now, the Secret Service and the security protocols effectively overruled him for a variety of probably very good reasons, but he then immediately undertook, not immediately, because he made sure that his wife was emotionally taken care of and secure, given the trauma that she had to experience in this type of event. But then he conducted a press conference where he addressed the fact that the United States will not be deterred. We are going to have another correspondence dinner within 30 days. He basically laid down the law, and that law is that no one is going to shove around the United States, whether it be a crazy person wielding guns and knives, whether it be China, whether it be Russia, whether it be Iran. This is not something that President Trump, while he is commander-in-chief, is going to tolerate. Once again, there are policy positions that I disagree with respect to President Trump. There are policy positions that I think President Trump needs to advance. No one is perfect, and there are politics that I'm probably not completely familiar with, which argue for or against the positions that I am advocating on a daily basis. But we need to recognize and applaud the fact that our president is willing to stand up against this kind of adversary, that is willing to stand up under adverse circumstances and unite the country. Does President Trump always espouse positions that you are uniting of the country? Absolutely not. But if you had to deal with on a daily basis the kind of biased, unbalanced attacks by the mainstream media and social media upon you, as President Trump does on an hourly basis, it would color your perspective as to whether or not you're going to be egalitarian and generous in your viewpoints with respect to those kinds of attacks. I think it's perfectly justified at some level that he points out the fake news, that he points out that institutions such as CNN do not give a balanced reporting structure. Now, this was a program in an evening that was dedicated to the First Amendment. And President Trump came out of the gala with a press conference where he applauded the coming together of everyone in the room. That included the media, that included Democrats, Republicans, and independents. That was a heartwarming situation where we could all adopt and we could all gravitate to. We are Americans. We are Americans first. It does not mean that we ignore the rest of the world. It does not mean that we can't have allies in Europe, Japan, and otherwise. It does not mean that we can't strive to find common ground with China and Russia to the extent that common ground can be found and ascertained. What it does mean, however, is that the decades of the way that the United States has allowed other countries to take advantage of us, abuse us, and undertake actions that are not in the interest of America, which created almost $40 trillion of federal debt, those days are over. The hope, obviously, that in 2028, we don't regress back into a situation of wokeness, of kowtowing to foreign adversaries, of kowtowing to Europe and continuing to bail them out, that we continue to foster and advance policies that are associated with the character of the United States. The other day, I've argued in favor of enhanced legal immigration. This is another hallmark of what we can do on an ongoing basis. While we can be America first does not mean that we can't embrace and entertain more upstanding immigrants into our country and advance the causes of democracy throughout the world. So yes, we take this one evening where this crazy man that ran through the hotel with guns and knives began to attack members of the administration, and I have extrapolated that into a geopolitical framework. But it is telling. It's telling because it comes down to character. And that character is President Trump. And while he is a flawed human being, as we all are, and he may be in some ways more flawed than others in terms of character, his base attribute of defending the United States, of defending his wife, of attempting to unite us in times of peril, of being cool, calm, and collected are hallmarks of the kind of president that we do in fact want. And we need to stop the fighting. We need to fund HHS. We need to fund the Secret Service. We need to fund TSA. We need to stop the division. We need to stop the nonsense. And we need to come together as a country. There are other things that I have advocated that we need to do. We need to have the federal government potentially bail out cities and states that are democratically controlled and institute policies where they can advance the interest of minorities. We need to irrigate the West. We need massive prison reform. We need to really look at the legalization of drugs and prostitution and take the criminal element out of those practices. There are a lot of creative things that we can do to make the United States better. But at the first instance, we need character in office, and character in office that is not going to buckle under pressure, character in office that is going to defend the interests of the institutions of the United States, character in office that is going to protect the border against adversaries and against illegal immigrants that are undeserving of entering the country. These are all attributes that we need in office. Now, whether or not Vance or Rubio are going to advance those causes in 2028, we don't know. What we do know is that it is more likely than not that Vance and Rubio are in fact going to carry on the kinds of policies that are protective of American interests. It is highly questionable whether or not Pritzker, Newsom, and some of the other Democratic candidates that are progressive and left-leaning that have destroyed the governments of California and Illinois are going to be able to run the country, or whether or not they're basically going to regress into a defeatist type of woke environment that did not work with Biden, did not work with Obama, and needed to have corrective action taken. We need to think long and hard about who we vote for. We need to continue to be very, very informed of these issues. We need to be very contemplative about how we view recent events and reflect upon history when we're looking at recent events and judge things over the long term, not the short term. We do not need to revert into a socialist mentality, no matter how charming and how much Mondani smiles. We cannot be deluded into believing that a socialist mentality is the way to go. Fundamental character also means that we are looking at what are America's interests right now. That is not selfish. That is in our self-interest and candidly the interest of the world. A strong America fighting against totalitarian regimes is candidly in the interest of the world at large. This is Steve Gibson reporting. Once again, please remember to like, follow, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate your attention.